What a way to start. uh, and Jane, thank you for coming here. We are always really, really glad to see you. Um, the you, I found this wonderful thing. I was watching you talk about you can't sleep through awakening, through your awakening, and how present that. Uh, brings about that you're like the way mindfulness is all about. And it's fascinating how you brought in all the different people that uh, are helped you to find that and work with that. But anyway, that's a whole different thing. Um, Today, you're going to talk about we're made for these times, and I am real anxious to hear that. So, Jane Simmons holds a doctorate degree in theology from Holos University. Is that pronounced right? Yeah. Uh, and let's see, graduate seminary as an ordained Unity minister and retiring. Before retiring in 2020, she ministered in four Unity churches. She was busy going back and forth to each one every Sunday. It was pretty amazing. And then she's currently a member of adjunct faculty at Unity Worldwide Spiritual Institute. So, Jane, welcome. Great to have you here.
Thank you, Jeff. I'm delighted to be here with you all. You know, that song just got me right into the mood, by the way, and it reminded me of how many years many of us have had this vision of peace coming. There's a world arising, and then what do we do about that? How do we help to midwife that world into being? So let me share my screen. So I just want to say how much I love being with you all. Every time I come here, I love being with you to explore these spiritual principles and see how they can, support us as we're going through some pretty turbulent times in our nation and in the world. My talk is We Were Made for These Times, and it's inspired by a book of that name by a former Buddhist nun who lived at Plum Village with Thich Nhat Hanh for about 20 years and is no longer a nun, but I mean, she still is in her heart. Her name is Kyra Jewel Lingo. And this book is a wonderful reminder that we all have within us what we need, to be successful no matter what's happening in the outer world. That, when we have these practices that can keep us present, that is the key for us. And that's good news because I don't know about you, but to me, it seems there's a whole lot going on in the outer world. This past year, for many of us, has been one of fear and exhaustion and anger and outrage and hopelessness and overwhelm. There's been a whole lot of energy that has really been scary for not just a few of us, for a lot of people. And yet here we are. We keep showing up. We keep showing up, saying yes to being the change that we want to see in the world. And and many of us are realizing that time is now. We've been singing that tune since the 70s, but it seems like our time has arrived for us to help to bring forth that kind of world. And so the reason I can say without any hesitation that we're made for these times is because in Unity and in New Thought, well, we have this pesky little foundational principle that says there's only one presence, one power in the universe, and that power is good. There's only one. And if we really believe that, if we really start to live life as if that were true, then we will know in our heart of hearts that nothing and no one can be against us. You may have heard this in the past. Nothing and no one can be against us, even in these troubling times where appearances are telling us the very opposite, when life feels like it's very much against us. that is the time to stand firm in these principles, stay rooted in that truth. So, out of that foundational principle come the other four unity principles. If there's only one presence, as you have already said this morning, we are divine. We're part of that presence. We have to be included in it. We are divine beings living in a physical universe. We're human, we're divine. And we're interconnected, as Dr. King puts it. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality. I just love how he says that. And it's all about our interdependence, our interconnection, our interbeingness, as Thich Nhat Hanh would call it. And that's really important for us to remember this, right? The third principle is kind of a good news, bad news, message that the thoughts that we're routinely thinking, the beliefs that we are routinely holding, will have a very great influence on our experience of life. Our experience of life. How I view the world matters. And that's an important piece for us to remember that our thoughts and our beliefs are really filtering our experience. So it is creating my reality for me. The fourth principle is, hey, we got some spiritual tools, spiritual practices that we can use to help us to awaken to this truth that there's only one presence. And the fifth one is we have to use those tools. We can't just talk about them. I love talking about them. I love studying them. They need to be put into practice. If we want to see any kind of a change, we have to put them into practice. So the fact that we believe these foundational principles in unity tells me that we can change our lives. It tells me that beyond our personal lives, we have the potential to transform our world by actually living those. Every single one of us can make a difference in our world if we are embodying these transformational principles, embodying them, being the change that we're seeking in the world. Because Spirit does some extraordinary work through ordinary, everyday people, people that are willing to say yes in these uncertain times. And when we do, when we show up and say yes, we are held by a divine strength, a divine power that is far greater than whatever is showing up in the world, whatever we're dealing with. It is a mighty power within us. That power can lift us, it can carry us, it can sustain us right through all the craziness that may be showing up in our world. We were made for these times. Now, now the author is not the first one to bring us this message. If you remember, the Jungian psychoanalyst Clarissa Piccola Estes wrote a beautiful essay more than 20 years ago entitled "Don't Lose Hope. We Were Made for These Times." It is an essay well worth the read, and you can Google it to read it in its entirety. I'm gonna just share a few lines from it, and as I'm saying this, notice how they land for you. And she says, "My friends, do not lose heart. Ours is a time of almost daily righteous rage over the latest degradations of what matters most to civilized visionary people. The luster," she says, "the hubris some have aspired to while endorsing acts so heinous against children, elders, everyday people, the poor, the unguarded, the helpless, is breathtaking. Yet," she says, "I urge you, please not spend your spirit dry by bewailing these difficult times. Especially do not lose hope, most particularly because the fact is that we were made for these times. For years, we have been learning, practicing, been in training for, and just waiting to meet on this exact plane of engagement." So, this is not a new message for us, but it bears repeating in today's world. I mean, although it was written over 20 years ago, it couldn't be more relevant or timely for us today. We have been learning and practicing these spiritual principles, some of us for decades and decades. And I truly believe by activating them, by embodying them, they will help us in these dark times. And we start with something Eric Butterworth used to call seeing it right. Don't set it right, see it right. We have to start there. The author, James Redfield, he posted this message, which I thought was just right on the beam. Observation changes reality. So look with love. And I thought, oh my God, that is so clear, isn't it? That he wrote as part of this posting. In quantum physics, the observer effect shows that the very act of looking can influence what unfolds. Science shows us that our attention alters outcomes in our minds, in our bodies, in our relationships. Our perception impacts our reality long before we speak or act. So the way we look at something matters. The way we look at something matters. When I look with judgment, what happens? What happens in my body? Well, I'm going to tense up. My sympathetic nervous system gets triggered, even to the point of the fight or flight response activating, and I will be on full alert, high alert. That's what happens when I'm being judgmental and condemning and all the rest of it. It shows up in my nervous system. However, when I look with love and kindness, something very different happens inside our nervous system. The parasympathetic system activates. If you think of a parachute, that part of the nervous system is designed to slow us down. The sympathetic speeds everything up. Parasympathetic slows us down and we can relax. Our body can go into rest and digest rather than fight or flight, you see. And so, with a different outlook, our systems can come into a harmonious alignment and we will bring forward something greater. We'll bring forward the best in ourselves because why? We're calming our nervous system. Some of what we just did with that opening prayer, beautifully done, is about bringing our system into alignment with when we use gratitude. Is real. Um, it can really move what's happening in our bodies in a big way, it can change things. So, this effect has been scientifically measured. If you look at heartmath.org, go to heartmath.org if you know about it already, and take a look at some of the science that they are putting together. That when I radiate a coherent, energetic from heart, it helps to create more currents. I mean, because I'm affecting everyone around me with that harmonious presence of peace that is now happening from within my heart. When I look at the world with a grateful heart, that can help bring it about. And I can start to help bring the world into a more coherent place. It's true as this happens, one heart at a time. So, as always with transformation, we have to start within. We have to start within. We have to look at the world with compassionate eyes, but also look at ourselves with those compassionate eyes. And guess what? We need to practice this every single day. Every single day. Before we can get to world peace, we need to deal with anything that's going on inside of us, fragmentation, or parts of ourselves that we are pushing away or exiling or thinking are lovable or whatever it is. We need to embrace all of us with love. And that's our work to do, is to start with our own internal work. And as we do that, we start to see what might be getting in the way of creating that coherent signal. We start to, there's this belief that I'm not good enough here, hiding here, whatever it is. And so we want to work on healing the divide that's maybe within our own psyche, as well as working with the outer world. But we have to start here. And once that healing happens in here, now we can work with the outer world in a much different way. And if we don't start here, if I don't do that, I'm just going to keep projecting what I don't want to see within myself out onto a unsuspecting world, especially if I find parts that I deem are unlovable or unacceptable. I'm going to project that. So, but just imagine if those things that we don't like about ourselves could actually lead us to greater compassion for all of us who may be stuck in those beliefs, you see, people who are similarly afflicted. When I respond with love and acceptance towards my own internal state, towards my own unfinished business from the past, something shifts. Something shifts. Those mistakes, those regrets, those beliefs can now be integrated. And a door opens that can help me deal with the outer world in a much different way because I'm unburdened by my own unhealed past. Whereas before, I'm dragging that with me into the whole thing. When we can do that, we show up aligned with our greater self, aligned with spirit, coming from our wholeness rather than seeing through the filter of a divided, unacceptable self. And in doing that, we truly contribute to the creation of an enlightened planetary civilization because we get our bloated nothingness out of the way. I have to say, this is without a doubt my favorite Emerson quote of all times. We get our bloated nothingness out of the way of the divine circuits, and something else is created. So, do you remember the story from the book of John where it's recorded that Jesus has a woman brought to him who's been found in adultery? She's been dragged there. It always amazes me that she's dragged there alone, by the way. That's a whole other story I won't get into, but there she is. And Jesus utters those very famous words, let him who is without sin throw the first stone, cast the first stone. And I'm always amazed at the psychological brilliance of this. You know, um, what a buzzkill for this righteous indignation that's going on. Just puts a wet blanket over the whole thing, like, oh yeah, thanks a lot. And everybody drops their stone, walks away, probably muttering, or as they say in the scriptures, murmuring. The Israelites murmured. um, and and so this is the work for us to look at, whoa, I'm throwing these stones. Hmm, what does that mean here? Byron Katie, one of my favorite people on the planet, actually, she has done some beautiful work on judgment and what that does. She has people write down their judging and gives them free range, write everything and make it as harsh as you want, whatever. And then, oh, now we have to look at, we turn it around. We turn it around. What does that look like? And find within ourselves what it is we're throwing stones about. She asks, who would you be without that story that you're carrying around? Who would you be without that story? It's really a brilliant question. So, so I look within and I can find the correlation here. Maybe not exactly what I'm seeing out there, but I can find times when I'm, oh yeah, I've acted selfishly as well. I've done whatever. But here's the important piece for us that the process doesn't end there. I don't take that judgment and now turn it on myself, and beat myself up. It's not, no, I'm not going to condemn myself. I find it here, but guess what I do? I forgive it here. Now, really get this. This is the important piece. I see it out there. I use that as a portal to find what it is I'm hiding from myself or I've exiled or I'm trying to push away or suppress. And now, with kindness, I forgive it here. And when that happens, I see out there much differently than I did before. Beautiful work, beautiful work. I see that other person with different eyes. Maybe I see them as a fellow human being who's screwing up royally, just like I have, right? And so that's part of seeing it right. We turn it around, we look within, we forgive it, and now we see it right. We see it right. Now, why does this work? Well, because when I see it in another and I judge it harshly, it's usually because it's something I'm hiding from myself. I got to tell you that projection is how the ego protects itself. Projection is how the ego protects itself. When I'm picking up those stones, classic egoic methodology, right? It's not about me, it's about that guy. He's the problem, right? However, when I start to use the outer world as a mirror of what I might need to forgive within myself, and I shift to feeling love, kindness, compassion, empathy, forgiveness towards myself, now whatever's happening out there becomes a portal unto my own awakening. You see it? And when I put down the stone, something new can blossom. Something new can emerge. This is emergence and how it works. So Jesus asked the woman, so where's your accusers? They all dropped their stones. They left. She says, well, they've gone. And then I find his next words to be so profound. I take them to my heart. They're so full of mercy. Neither do I condemn you. Neither do I condemn thee. And then he adds, go and sin no more. Off with you now, neither do I condemn you. Now go and learn from this, you know. Wow, powerful words. So when I meet somebody who's behaving in such a way that's harmful or inappropriate, and I'm picking up that stone, but I'm able to stop myself and see them through the eyes of love, not loving what they're doing, but seeing them as fellow human beings who are messing up, something extraordinary happens here. When I meet another's heart with compassion, with empathy, the threads of separation that have kept us, disconnected, they begin to dissolve. They begin to dissolve, and something else comes forth. When I am meeting the unlovable with love, something new unfolds. And it turns enemies into teachers. If we remember, we're all interconnected, you see. That's why this works. Now, we may still take action that says no to the behavior. Accountability is still a thing here, but we do it from our wholeness rather than our ego, you see. But let me be clear, being made for these times does not mean that we're meant to accept injustice or cruelty or despair as normal. No, love is not naively ignoring cruelty, to be very clear on that. Forgiveness is not condoning or endorsing harmful behavior. It's not that. And acceptance does not mean that we are complacent or that we're resigned to, oh, this is the way it is. I accept this is happening. No, it's not that. Rather, it's an acknowledgement and a recognition of what's unfolding, but without the internal baggage. See, it's seeing clearly without my projection imposed upon it. This is not easy, by the way. I mean, when I'm seeing such outrageous, constant corruption, harmful behaviors, my first impulse is to strike out, not to be kind, not to forgive, not to see with the eyes of love. You can ask my husband this. He's very forthcoming with what it's like to watch the news with me, right? But I will get to that place after I've had my say. I will find, okay, now I can move into this place. The Bhagavad Gita, part of the Hindu scriptures, says, you want to see the brave. Look at those who can forgive. And I love this. You want to see the true hero. Look at those who can love in return for hatred. Whew, wow, that's huge. This is a very tall order for us. It's definitely the advanced course here. But I have to ask you, what's the alternative? What's the alternative for us? I recently read that fighting for peace, it's like screaming for silence. And I thought, yeah, that's a good way to think of it. When I'm fighting against what is, my negativity is adding to the din. I'm just creating more of what I don't want, you see. So there are two aspects to this. If I find myself judging another, I want to heal that polarization, see them as human beings, and drop the stone. And then do the inner work before I take any action, see. And the same thing happens when the person I'm judging is me. Anybody here have any issues with self-judgment? I mean, I really It's my go-to practice for sure. But when I find myself doing that, I do the same thing. Instead of self-judgment, self-condemnation, I give myself the gift of compassion, acceptance, kindness. I drop the stone that I'm, going to be throwing at myself. Now, can you feel the difference here? Because it makes a difference. And it's not that we give ourselves room to continue with cruel behavior. That's not what self compassion is. Self compassion, on the other hand, can really shift our internal state so that we stop the kind of behaviors that we're beating ourselves up over. I mean, whenever I find myself condemning, judging, beating myself up for past mistakes, for regrets, words, actions I wish I could change, um, this is the time to pause and to remember the words that we hear from this story about Jesus, right? It doesn't condemn. That higher self of us, the divine self that we are, does not condemn. The ego condemns. The divine self never does. It loves, and it loves lavishly. Lavishly. Neither do I condemn you. Feel the kindness and the mercy in those words. That is what your higher self is saying to you. Saying to you. You know, another Buddhist nun that I love to read is Pema Chodron. She says this: we need to stop identifying with the ego's weakness and start shifting our allegiance to the truth of who we are. I'm paraphrasing here, but shift our allegiance from the ego that condemns to the divine self that does not. Can you feel that difference in there? It's really beautiful when you think about it. So we need to be mindful of the two voices and give that loving voice a much more room to speak and to guide us. Because when the ego condemns, the soul says, you are deeply loved. You are deeply loved. You made a mistake. Now be about your business. Learn from it. Don't repeat it. Use it. Use it to change. Use it to grow. Use it to evolve into who you've come here to be. You see? And that sense of having this loving environment is what's really important. A child will not grow and learn in an unsafe environment. The environment has to be safe before any learning can happen. And the same is said about our internal environment. If I'm always beating myself up, am I going to learn anything? No, and here's why. All my energy is going to go to defensive strategies that keep me safe from this internal onslaught. I'm talking about things like numbness, projection, denial. It takes amazing energy to keep those exiled parts of ourselves out of our conscious awareness. It really does. And all those tactics are defensive strategies that originate from having an unsafe internal environment. So how safe is it to walk through the neighborhood of your mind? That's a question I want to ask myself. And it's, we have to shift this around. It takes work. But I'm here to tell you that it can be done, that it needs to be done. And I'm speaking as a seasoned a seasoned self-condemnation expert. And if we don't do this, we will just continue projecting what we don't want to see about ourselves out onto the world. Viktor Frankl is quoted as saying, it is this spiritual freedom, and by that he's referring to our ability to choose our attitude no matter what's happening in the world. It is this spiritual freedom that makes life meaningful and purposeful. And here's the thing, it can't be taken away from us. It's innate. It can't be removed. It's one of our powers. We have the power right now to choose how we will respond rather than react. And I don't know about you, but I've been doing a whole lot more reacting these days than responding. I mean, I dread watching the news at night. I will often put headphones on and listen to soothing music while Gary watches it because I know how triggering it is for me. And maybe you've felt this way, that my desire to be informed is messing with my sanity here. I want to know what's going on, but how do I deal with that triggering? And So the author of the book, with her Buddhist background, shares many breathing and mindfulness techniques that can help us when we are triggered like that. And one of them is to simply acknowledge what you're feeling and stay present to the emotion. So she has an example of if you feel angry, you do breathing in, I notice I'm angry. Breathing out, I'm here for my anger. Can you feel what that's like? We're not running away from it. We're not trying to push it away. We're not suppressing. We're not trying to distract ourselves. We're noticing we're angry and we're staying with it. Another thing that Pema Chodron teaches, stay. Don't run away. Don't disappear. Stay with what's happening. Or breathing in, I notice I feel shame. Breathing out, I'm here for my shame. We want to embrace what is going on within us. And Thich Nhat Hanh actually adds a step to this practice that I found so powerful. And that is, as I'm remaining present to whatever I'm feeling, I actually hold it the same way I would a baby or a child, right? I find myself rocking back and forth. Whenever I'm doing self-compassion, oh, I notice I'm feeling shame. I'm here for my shame, and I'm going to hold it and allow it and be here. And and that's when we can move through this emotion. I mean, did you know that emotions have 90-second lifespans? Unless we try to push it away or attach a story to it that's going to keep on triggering us. 90 seconds for it to rise, crest, and fall, right? And so we want to be practicing this, allowing it, letting it come and go. And if we don't do that, it lives on indefinitely until we allow it safe passage. So I believe that our culture's inability to do that kind of work, to allow what we're feeling to be and let it move, and to do this kind of inner shadow work, our inability to do that is the very reason that we're seeing so much negativity in the world. I truly believe that because we're all unconsciously projecting our stuff on each other. So the universe is for us. It's not against us. And as Ernest Holmes, New Thought leader, points out, we have to consistently know that. This is our work to keep that in our minds. When we learn how to use whatever's showing up out there for our own awakening, holding to the truth that there's only one presence and one power, that everything is for me in some way, then whatever's happening becomes our greatest ally. And that's why we are made times. Again, from Pema Chodron, times are difficult globally, she says. Awakening's no longer a luxury or an ideal. It's becoming critical. Now, she goes on to say, we don't need to add more depression, more discouragement, more anger to what's already there. And it's becoming essential that we learn how to relate sanely to those difficult times. The earth, she says, seems to be beseeching us to connect with the joy that is within us and to discover our innermost essence. That, she says, is the best way that we can benefit others. Connect with the joy that is within you and discover your innermost essence and share that with the world. And it's a joy that doesn't have to be earned. It just needs to be claimed and allowed out. That's going to save our world. That's going to save our world. So I want to invite all of us today to notice reality with a kind eye. Kindfulness is what kindfulness, and watch how life responds. Try a softer gaze, a kinder interpretation. Embrace what's arising with compassion and acceptance, and start to see yourself and the world through the eyes of forgiveness. And even if we make a tiny little shift in how we're viewing ourselves in the world, it matters. Because love, when we embrace it, can be a unifying force. And when we do, we heal not only the division within us, but we also contribute to healing the greater division in the world. Do not underestimate the power of compassion and forgiveness. This moment is recruiting us. May we be wise enough to listen. May we be brave enough to believe that our presence matters, that what we do matters. And above all, we be bold enough to act. And so let's take a moment right now and go within. Go within and take a breath. And let's continue as we began with the heart. Let's move back into the heart, that place of gratitude. Allowing the gratitude as we think of someone or something that we're grateful for, letting it to grow and expand and radiate throughout your body. Notice how that feels to have every cell of your body come alive. It's a high vibration of appreciation. And we let that feeling grow beyond the body and radiate this coherent electromagnetic signal. It surrounds us. We are saturated in this healing vibration. And we can share this with the world, sharing it with our families, in our relationships, our communities, and beyond. The truth is, we were made for these times. Every one of us here to be the one to make the difference in our world, our little corner of the world. To be the presence of peace, harmony, kindness, and to share that, to share our joy, to move our allegiance to the higher self and truly allow that higher self to move us, to motivate us, to guide us, remembering that the divine self never condemns. Neither do I condemn you. Know that as each one of us opens to this deeper dimension within us, as we become the change that we are seeking in the world, we help to bring forth a transformed world, one heart at a time. A kinder world, a safer world for all of our loved ones, our children, our grandchildren, our neighbors. A kinder, safer world. For this opportunity to be love in action. Our hearts remain open in gratitude to the one presence, the one power that is living itself as and through each one of us. We are the avenue through which love is blessing this planet. So let's take a breath and radiate the kindness that we are as we give thanks for this time together, for this wonderful work that we do, for the vision that comes when we see it right, for the opportunity to be love in action. And so it is.